So I didn't realize it until today, seeing how there's so many people, historians, and archaeologists that want to smear the Pilgrims. And most people think that's a myth story. No, it literally is not. It's where Thanksgiving came from. But more than that, there's a reason those people do that. It's really simple. It's the same story. It's the same old story. So they put Jesus to, they thought they were putting Jesus to death. The leaders of the church back then, the Roman Empire, and again, the Roman Empire then went on to conquer other countries like England, that then we had all the problems with. But they thought that by putting God to death, they knew he was God. They did. There was enough evidence for it. But that God thing was going to interfere in their lifestyle. They're being seen as, popular and in their sashes and their hats and their robes. Jesus talked about this in the Bible. They think they're so special. This is why Jesus, get this, you lefties, Jesus himself went to the poorly educated. He did. He went to the everyday nobodies. Didn't go to church leaders, didn't go to the government. Nope. Said no use there. They're all in their box of self-importance. He went to the sinners, the poorly educated. He knew they would be the strongest, the smartest to carry on the message he needed them to carry on. And what was that message? Well, what your leaders of the church and the leaders of the government thought they were doing by crucifying Jesus is it would end there and no more talk of this, this blasphemous man. No, they knew who he was. They just wanted, let's just forget about it and go back to us being special. But that's not what happened because, when Jesus resurrected and went to see the disciples, and again, the reason there's the 4 Gospels in the Bible is because that's literally the evidence. They all back each other up. And there's even more than that backs all the Bible up. But again, I don't want to go off on this road. My point is that what happened after that is Jesus said, I have to go away. And of course, the disciples wanted him to stay. And he said, no, I can't. I have to go away because I'm sending the helper. Who was the helper? It was the Holy Spirit. Because the Holy Spirit then becomes the teacher, and the more you walk with that, the more it guides you. It becomes and you can't explain it to people. So what ended up happening? Well, the Roman Empire spent every day the rest of their lives and continuing on into England to take down everyone, even to controlling the church. That's the reason why the Pilgrims fled England, because it was the government controlling the church, and they knew it was that what they were doing was wrong, because they realized, we didn't kill Jesus. We didn't get rid of that whole message thing. Because now it's just spreading like wildfire in other people, this spirit. And again, people don't go on to the disciples, the apostles, many, many, many people throughout history, so much evidence there, that went on to have this happen, the Holy Spirit come alive in them. They share this message. They become hunted and persecuted and killed. People don't do that for a lie. Not on that mass level of amounts. It still goes on today. Maybe people don't get as killed as often. I guess it depends on what country you live in. But they have always been trying to kill that message. So what ended up happening with the Pilgrims? They fled to Holland, as I said. And then they were still being persecuted because they were printing the Geneva Bible. And, there was the King James Bible. And then at the same time, though, they had their own printer. William Bradford had his own printing press, and so that's why England broke the printer press he had, because they wanted him to stop printing the Geneva Bible, because the Geneva Bible has like handwritten things on the side, and you can look it up. It's just very hard to read because of the way they wrote back then, but you can make it out. You really have to study it, and it's pretty much the same as King James, but there's more added to it. From things that I would say the people that truly knew God, and that was the Pilgrims. They knew God. They would be the closest to our modern age, even though that was 1620, of people, a group of people that truly, they knew God. Our 1776 founders, they were good. I'm not saying they weren't good people, but they weren't fleeing religious persecution. They weren't. Most of them came from rather wealthy families. I'm not saying they were elites. They stood up for the country. They fought against the England. for freedom. It was a different time frame. But the catalyst for all of it, the reason people fled here for religious freedom is it started with the self-government of the Pilgrims. And let me just read this, because here's the evidence for why all these historians and archaeologists that want to stain our country, that's all they're doing, is trying to stain our country. Because the people you really shouldn't try to stain is the Pilgrims. Literally, these were people that worked for years to save up money to charter a boat. That basically the boat had no plumbing, it had no heating. They were on there under the deck for 2.5 months, which is why many of them died on the boat. Then the first winter here in Plymouth, half of them died. But they weren't coming here to conquer anyone. Yet you listen to some historians on YouTube talking about William Bradford, they'll say what atrocities he committed. These people couldn't commit atrocities if they wanted to. And the reason these historians, the higher educated, don't know is because they don't look at it from the biblical context, because that's what it's all about. The Pilgrims' lives was about God. If you're not somebody that understands the Spirit or knows how that works at all, then you would never look at it from that lens. But literally, the way the Pilgrims saw themselves when they stepped on Plymouth was, yes, they wrote the Mayflower Compact with the hope that they would be accepted. They saw themselves as visitors, and then made peace, a 50-year peace with the Indians, which is where Thanksgiving came from. Because after the first year of half of the Pilgrims dying because of no food and the harsh conditions of the winter, they suddenly realized things were getting better after that winter, and that they could really make this all work. And they were working with the Indians, and them were working together, which is why they had this celebration. But people would have never known about the Thanksgiving celebration if it hadn't been for William Bradford's manuscript. It was a huge manuscript that he was writing in all the time up until he died, about everything all the Pilgrims went through. Yes, all the proof. And guess what happened? It went missing after his death. But it was finally found. It was finally found in 1855. Where do you think it was found? In England. A British soldier took it. So then Plymouth fought with England for the longest time to get it back, saying no, it belongs to Plymouth. It's William Bradford's. He was one of the founders of Plymouth. When they did finally send it back, they had taken pages out of it. And the pages they took out of it was some ancient Hebrew text. One of the first things he said, one of the first writings he had done was Hebrews 11:13, which was about strangers and sinners, or strangers and pilgrims, something about that. So what do you think he was writing about? Because these people, everything, God was their main focus all the time. In their everyday lives all the time. Would be a lot about God, right? It'd be a lot about the Holy Spirit, because those are some people that would know about it. Nobody could put themselves on that kind of ship and go through what they did unless the Holy Spirit was literally carrying them to do it. And they would even say that. But it says in that manuscript, no, as soon as we stepped foot on land, we dropped to our knees, we thanked God. They made a promise to God, which is a covenant. And that is what God does over and over again in the Bible. They did not come as these historians that want to smear the Pilgrims. It's because these historians, these people are the same as England, which England was being ruled by the Roman Empire. What did the Roman Empire spend the rest of their days doing? Was hunting down Christians that had the Holy Spirit alive in them, and that was speaking the truth. And the Pilgrims, they were persecuting them in Holland, in England, then in Holland, and even up until even after they died, and still to this day want to make them look bad. Why would that be? Because that means your country is very special in that way, because these were literally, even though not modern day, but sort of, it was the beginning of our history. So people that want to destroy your country want to smear your history. But the fact is, they can't smear it. William Bradford's manuscript tells of everything that went on. They weren't slaughtering any Indians. They made peace. And that manuscript is why people learned about Thanksgiving.